Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Paz, with the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. WrestleMania, the co-host with the most, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. First, before I get closer to the camera, I just wanted to highlight a shirt that I asked my daughter to make, which is based on the Macho Man Freak Out, Freak Out, Freak Out interview with Mean Gene Okerlund. I think she did an awesome job with the art. She's professionally known as H in the public sphere. She goes to a art and design high school. Um, and this is sort of like an inside joke because I'm finishing my doctoral degree. We would meet like once a week over Zoom, kind of like this. And people went around, how's it going? Like with your first assignment, I was like, I thought I was going to freak out. So my other classmates remembered me from saying that. So that's sort of like an inside joke to why I made the T-shirt. But I'm very proud of her work, and I'll be wearing it a lot.
Nice. Love the shirt. I love the promo too. If you remember that great promo from Mean Gene, I love watching some of those old promos with Mean Gene and the Macho Man. Oh yeah,
Oh,
cream of the crop.
oh yeah, those are the best. And your friend and recent guest, Chris, our friend and recent guest on your program, Chris Zellner. I love when they pull out the little snippets. It's just like the old promos, like it just felt like so real, like connecting with the audience. Whereas today, it depends on the performer, not to blanket everyone, but it wasn't somebody scripting it. It was really, as has been well documented, but like really
Yes.
connecting with the audience on a deeper level.
So let's talk about the big topic of the week, WrestleMania, but not only WrestleMania. Let's talk about WrestleMania the week, show by show. What is going on in Vegas this week?
Yeah, we have a very ambitious episode ahead. So the first thing that I noticed, John, was an article from the Vegas newspaper where it said 180,000 wrestling fans were expected to slam Las Vegas for WrestleMania week, which was quite interesting because, as we know, this WrestleMania will have lower attendance, probably break the financial records because everything is more expensive, and it's a smaller venue um, for a stadium, so not a small venue, but um, depending on what the final numbers come out, and we'll be, of course, recording. We are recording this in advance. Let's say they've even set it up for 55,000 or number of seats according to WrestleTix on the map, and we'll be leaning on them a lot. 68,000 potentially, but let's say they do 55, 56,000. And even if you were to say, and we know, of course, that a lot of tickets were sold um, combination days, but let's say 100,000 tickets are individuals. So where are those 80,000 other people coming from? We know, John, that people go to other shows, but I think that's like a small number. Like, how many people do you think like are like, oh, I want to be in a town for wrestling, but I'm not going to go to WrestleMania? I think there's some, but like, what type of number do you think that would be?
I feel like that would be a low amount because you're in town literally for Mania. And yeah, you'll go to WrestleCon, all the other stuff, but you're not specifically going to Vegas to go to WrestleCon. I don't think. I would think that would be small. So I would think it would be somewhere around 105, 110,000 fans. I don't know where the other 70,000 comes from. I mean, that's kind of crazy if that many people are traveling just to go to like WrestleMania World or like meet some of the superstars instead of actually go to WrestleMania. That'd be kind of nutty.
Yeah, I think like, sometimes when you look at the attendance, sometimes you could find it in other ways. Let's say there's more food service providers, vendors coming to town,
Yeah.
entertainers, all that sort of thing that goes into servicing more people than are normally in town. But 180,000 is a hard number to get to. So just in terms of perspective, in recent years, WrestleMania 40 had about 73,000 each night in Philadelphia. 39 in Inglewood had about 80,000. each night. And you don't need to reach out to sleuth these numbers. I'm just giving broad numbers. This isn't the WrestleMania 3
Yes.
thing, just for the interest of time. WrestleMania 38, Arlington, Texas. That was about 78,000. Of course, we had the pandemic, but just going back a little bit, like to look at what modern major numbers were. So 2019 MetLife Stadium in, of course, New Jersey. That was, of course, one night, 82,000. 34 in New Orleans. Obviously, these all used to be one night. So 78,000. Orlando on the WrestleMania 33, 75,000. Arlington, Texas, 101,000. Some other people say 80,000 and so on, but a lot of people. And 31, 76,000. So the effect is not only in reaching this 180,000 number, but I think the effect is seen, in terms of all of the number of shows that are taking place. John, as it crosses over into your social media and what you're keeping an eye on, besides TNA and events affiliated with the collective that are non-WWE events, we talked about WrestleCon, but they're doing their, I believe it's Mark Hitchcock, hopefully I'm not messing that up, Memorial Show is actually through the collective this year. Have there been other shows where where it stood out to you that they were getting a lot of buzz, or were those the ones that you were hearing about?
No, it's really just those that I was hearing about. I know Defy had a show and there were some other ones, but I think that was a part of the collective. Really just those. That was all that was really kind of, coming on my radar as far as all those shows. But man, there's a lot of freaking shows. It's crazy. I can't believe there's so many shows and meet and greets and parties and after parties, and man, it's just it's nuts.
Yeah, so first I just want to give an overall sort of look at the trend. So there's about Phil Stamper. Trust in Phil has an awesome resource where he puts out weekly, but it's much more than that, upcoming independent shows. And of course, there's so many more than can possibly be listed or one can be aware of, but it's an amazing resource. Definitely check that out. But he had a WrestleMania special, as well as did Voices of Wrestling and others. But just to look at sort of the 10 polls of where events are occurring non-WWE. So at the Palms, in addition to the collective, and we'll talk about the collective and TNA sort of towards the end, but Slam Fest. So that includes, besides going to the theater, they have WrestleMania viewing and pool parties. Woo, with your favorite wrestling stars. Which includes Penelope Ford, Mojo Riley, and so on. And then appearances by Shelton Benjamin, MVP. Okay, they like to hurt people, and so on. Then Final Bell to Last Call, you have Bully Ray's Rooftop. Then you have a Skyline Saturday with a special DJ. Then you have Major Figure Podcast live in Vegas, Wrestling Observer Convention. This is all at the Palms. Then there's, of course, WrestleCon, which it doesn't feel like to me that it's been getting as much attention this year. And maybe, nothing against any of these stars, but maybe their biggest draws, maybe they're committed to other things and so on. So one of the cool things is that Sting is going to retire convention appearances soon, but he's appearing at least in two different face paints, the red and the white. Timeless Tony Storm, Ronda Rousey, Saraya, and Mike Tyson. Those are the main draws for that. FSW, Future Stars of Wrestling, they have 7 shows with different promotions, like Devotion Championship Wrestling, Texas Wrestling, Pottermania, Colorado Wrestling, and so on, over 3 days. The Swan Dive has a Lucha show, a Dusk Pro Wrestling and WrestleCore show, and then the Nerd has Micromania, midget wrestling. That's how they describe the promotion, not my description of little people and so on. But just to begin talking about attendances so far. So of their 4 shows, a couple of them had been listed as almost full. And a couple not. They were the first ones, like kickoff WrestleMania week. Then the Nerd had like Rob Van Dam's after party, Joey Now spring break after party, Mania in Vegas, so you can watch, and so on. So those are sort of like the different events. So that also speaks to like the scalability of it, because and you guys know only once in a while that I curse, but I think a number of promotions are going to lose their ass this year. And that's not really a laughing matter. But it's really, John, I feel like the trade-off is that some promotions are going just to go, and the credibility of that, and possibly networking, but sort of knowing that they're not going to make a lot of money. Do you think that could be the case?
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely going to be the case because you kind of have to be there. You got to show face. You got to get your name out there. But there's also 65 different shows to go to. So some of them are definitely not going to make the money that they're going to be looking to make either. And man, it's an expensive trip out there. That's for sure.
I think one of the things that helps them is like you have these venues. So like the Collective, of course, they have actually they moved all of their shows to the same spot in the hotel rather than splitting it up. Dragon Gate was going to be a small room, which might have come across better in their original planning, because they're basically going to pack out that small room, and then suddenly they were in this 2,200 seat venue, and then they're only really on the floor a little bit, a drop in the riser. So maybe that hurts the perception a little bit, but obviously it makes a lot of sense logistically, just to keep all the venues and events in the same place. You don't have to move the ring around or find another ring, that sort of thing. But what also helps is that you have all of these talents there. So like, for example, and this is an extreme case, but Masha Slamovich is doing 4 shows in one day. It happens that the first show starts at noon. The last show is like at 9 p.m., whatever it might be. And she's a semi-free agent, right? Because she's signed to TNA, but she has the ability to do these shows. And she's really one of the top stars on the independents. But, this could work for other independent wrestlers too. And however companies work it out amongst themselves, or the wrestler helps to work it out too, where you could split the hotel room and the travel costs and so on between the promotions. But let's get into the nitty gritty here. And just spoiler alert, there's not a lot of surprises, meaning that the shows you may not have heard of and so on, they wouldn't be expected to do well, and they're probably not going to do well. Whereas those that are a little bit higher profile, like the Collective, you expect to do well. We'll talk about if they met those expectations, TNA, and so on. But let's get into it. So Big Valley Wrestling, the world's greatest wrestling live pro wrestling event at the Sci-Fi Center in Las Vegas. So there's no open map, but I was able to do a ticket search for at least 30 tickets in each of the categories, or 30 in 3 categories and 20 in the other. So $20 tickets, I put 30 in the box, $15, 30, and so on. And I was able to, balcony seating, I was able to put 20 tickets. The prices were very reasonable, between $20 and $10. But over 110 tickets went into my cart in a small venue. So that's just like a little bit of a picture there. New Tradition Wrestling in the Swan Dive Bar. So in terms of reserved seats, there are very few of them, but very few of them were sold, as far as I could tell. Plenty of, yeah, plenty of tickets in the front row and beyond. So not much there for Viva Las Reinas Lucha Libre. And again, this is a snapshot in time. So if there was a run on any of those shows, we'd be happy to hear it, or something sold out. But this is just at that moment. Colorado Wrestling Connection presents CWC versus the World. Front row, VIP front row was sold out. General admission tickets was 10 or more. ASC, which gets a lot of buzz. They had previously run, I believe, the For the Culture elements at the Collective. They ran a small venue, and in terms of reserve seats, there was about 8 remaining when I checked. They may have sold those out, so they may have done well. Circle 6, Mayhem at the Museum. It sounded like a unique idea. I think it was in the museum's parking lot, which sort of feels like Circle 6 esque. I searched for the maximum number of tickets, and 35 VIP and 35 GA were available, at the same time. Kirk White's Big Time Wrestling. 10 or more tickets were available in GA and ringside seating. Pandemonium Pro Wrestling at the Fremont Country Club. The maximum number of tickets, so I ran 6 front row tickets, which were $95 a piece, and those were still available. This is an interesting one. So Stardom, American Dream 2025 in Sin City, so coming all the way, obviously, from Japan. They were charging $300, John, for first row tickets.
Whoa.
I ran 30 tickets in the cart, and I was able to do that. So what is it, like about, depending on the size of the venue, about 18 tickets on each of the 4 sides of a ring. I know they can vary, and sometimes they're able to sort of find more rows or ways of doing a front row. But let's say even 80 tickets around the front row. So at least 30 of those were still available. So I think the hope was to utilize a small venue, but charge a lot for tickets, because first row, $300, GA was just $40. So you could basically be standing in a second row seat for $40. Phase 1, Dante's House of Fire. GA, the max 10 tickets are available, or were available. West Coast Pro, Vegas Vacation, had 15 or more front row tickets, 15 or more second row, GA as well. Dusk Pro Wrestling, Field of Hope and Dreams, Swan Dive. Front row, 20 or more tickets available. GA, 20 or more tickets available. Women's Circle Pro Wrestling, The Score. Looked like a very small venue. Plenty of front row tickets remained. Spark Joshi. So they sold their front row. Second row, limited availability, was $90. Actually, maybe I don't have in front of me. Maybe Stardom did sell their second row out, but had plenty in the first row. I think the Spark Joshi front row tickets were less expensive. World's Greatest Wrestling had 10 or more VIP tickets remaining and 10 or more GA tickets. Prestige Wrestling, nothing to lose. Well, there's always something to lose. Hopefully they didn't lose, but I think they sold out the front row, but the second row, 15 or more tickets. GA, 15 or more tickets. Demand Lucha at the FSW Arena. Front row, more than 10 tickets available. It was by different sides, so even searching first row left side had 10 or more tickets available. A Ruthless Pro, Miasma 2, GA, 20 or more tickets available. Banger Zone, 10 or more tickets available in the front row. All Caribbean Wrestling. So this is the promotion that's gotten attention for their distribution, but also working with Mark Henry. So in all of these areas, however they distinguish this, GA, VIP, Buddy Pass, and Towel and Whistle all had 10 or more tickets available. Marvelous Pro Live, 15 or more in the second row. So they sold out their first row, and GA 10 or more tickets. So the Pottermania, which has Izzy against Nina Samuels, they had 10 or more tickets available, reserved. Front row, 2-packs, GA 2-packs. Versus, okay, so this is interesting. So there are some free events around town. So I don't have tickets numbers, of course, but they were still available to claim them. So Versus Pro Bet at the Downtown Container Park in Vegas. WrestleCore. Fear and WrestleCore in Las Vegas. Shooting Starfest. 10 or more GA tickets available. Also, free pro wrestling with Chavo Guerrero at Beer Zombies. So this is one is an interesting thing to look at, as we'll talk about more in a few moments. Dragon Gate with the Collective did relatively well, or I would say quite well. I don't think the expectations should change, even though they moved them to a bigger space at the hotel. First, John, I'm not sure if you saw this. I felt bad for a friend of the show, former guest Ho Ho Lun. He had reserved his hotel room, and like it's a chain, like a good chain. And when he got there was like a sign on the door: "I'm sorry, customers, like your order has been canceled."
Whoa, what the hell?
Yeah, and especially now, I mean, depends on if 180,000 people came to Vegas, but hopefully he was able to resettle, especially traveling that far. But this is getting away from it here. So Dragon Gate working with Pro Wrestling Revolution on April 18th, and the date hasn't happened yet as we are recording this. There are so many more tickets available depending on what the setup is like. Front row has 7 tickets remaining. Second row, 15 or more. Third row, 10 or more. Fourth and fifth row, 15 or more. Standing room only, 15 or more tickets. So that's much lower than the Collective. So A, it could be the Collective and the venue. But B, and I would say that's probably more so. And B, just a lower profile event. Also, Friday night, right, is that competing with a live SmackDown. Grap House. Okay, so this one didn't have a limit, or maybe I reached the limit or I stopped or whatever. So at the space, I'm not sure how big the space is, but I was able to put 251 tickets in my cart.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was like a technical thing, but that was interesting. New Fear City, so that's a promotion that's actually moved to the West Coast from New York. They do a lot of the bar wrestling, no ring wrestling, and whatever. 30 tickets or more were available. Family Time Wrestling, FTW Mania, 10 or more tickets available. Our friends at the Juggalo, they're actually doing a free event, and then an after party with Violent J. John, what were your expectations for the ID tournament when you first heard about it? Did you think like GCW and FSW would be able to capitalize on that?
That's what I was thinking. But then, I don't know, I was kind of thinking maybe the other way, that maybe too much WWE involvement with like high level indies, maybe that's not a good thing, because a lot of times people want like a different, I know with WWE, the name is going to help you would think maybe get more promotion or maybe more eyes on it. But to me, if you're an indie, you kind of don't want to be associated as much with WWE. You kind of want to be the anti-WWE. You feel like those fans that are the indie fans maybe necessarily aren't WWE fans. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know. I can kind of be 50-50 on it. I almost think it could end up hurting them.
Yeah, agreed. And so far, and we'll get into numbers in a second, it feels like apathy. Also for me, and certainly nothing wrong with this as an ID talent, because the point is sort of discovering talent and so on. I know Kylie Ray, hopefully I'm getting your name right.
Yep.
Very well known. Basically beloved on the independent circuit. The other, I'm not sure if Atticus Cougar is signed, but he's a standout person. But the other names I'm not familiar with like at all. I feel like you have to be our friends at PW Ponderings to know these people and follow them. And obviously they're very accomplished and everything like that, but they're not meant to be draws, right? They're meant to develop. So like a tournament just with that, may not draw.
Yeah, and true. I mean, there are guys that WWE has their eyes on, but they're not necessarily ready for WWE, which is why they're in the ID program to begin with.
John, did you notice this in the advertising for the tournament? There was no, like, when it would be like specifically advertising, like watching the stream, there was no WWE logo used.
I did not
But
did not
yeah,
notice that. Interesting.
both by GCW and FSW, but like in ticket sales pages and so on, it's used, and we see it all the time on posters. My thoughts on it are that maybe there's some exclusivity needed for Peacock and Netflix, where you can't like have an official WWE event because it should be under like one of their umbrellas.
Could be. I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
So looking at the pictures, which confirmed it, I don't know how many people were at the GCW event, but I don't think there were very many at all. So I wanted to wait till the last second, like of the window closing, to get a full picture, but maybe I mixed up the West Coast timing or whatever, or I think the event was moved an hour earlier. And I know they sold tickets at the door, but when I last had it, 3 front row tickets remained. 10 second row tickets at least, 10 third row, fourth row, and GA at least. So certainly compared to the rest of the collective, which we'll have to measure in a different way, it was not a draw. FSW, that hasn't occurred yet as of this recording, but again, in all their different tiers, 10 or more tickets remain there. So we're up to the collective. So John, in seeing the numbers being shared and so on, were you like surprised? Did you have like certain expectations of what it would look like?
To be honest, you would think more tickets would be sold, but there's so much going on that week. I mean, so I honestly don't know what to expect or what they were expecting, but I guess you would kind of maybe think that more sellouts would have happened, but there's so many different things going on. I mean, God, you go to WrestleMania World, and apparently Steve Austin was walking around one day. So, I mean, geez, I mean, it's just a craziness over there with the
Yeah, and what's interesting with the collective is that you're basically running a venue as bigger, well, yeah, bigger than the Hammerstein Ballroom for 4 nights. So there was no expectations that, you would sell it out most of the time. Maybe there was a hope for like Sabu nostalgia, for getting something big going there. But maybe there was a little bit of uncertainty as well, because he didn't go to the Hall of Fame ceremony originally, or he's been retired. So, mostly retired for quite a while. So not necessarily his retirement match. Obviously, apples to oranges, but that didn't reflect Ric Flair's thing. Obviously, this would be a totally different scale. So firstly, Dragon Gate, as we mentioned, it was moved from a different part of the venue, so these tickets were not on Ticketmaster. But just in terms of the prices, and that's important to factor in, right? Because they're here. I don't think their talent are doing shows outside of their brand that I'm aware of. So you're paying for the cost to fly most from Japan or Asia, and does it make sense? So front row ringside, they sold out $180 a ticket. VIP, you get a merchandise pack and so on. That was $20. I'm seeing here. Then the rest of the front row was $65. And the only thing that they had remaining, originally it said standing room only, but plenty of seats for people to sit down. So I don't think anyone had to stand. Now, we talked about the WWE ID tournament. So WrestleTix had an interesting thing, especially for the first day, that 300 level seats had been removed from most of the shows for the first day. Whether they end up doing that for spring break, we'll have to see. Now, these ticket numbers are a snapshot in time again, but it does give us a picture of what things look like, especially compared to themselves. So speaking about the volume of events activities, not only this year is there Effie's Big Gay Brunch, but there's actually an actual Big Gay Brunch, which I think was the time more of breakfast. But the actual wrestling show, 574 tickets. GCW versus TJPW versus TDP, 465. Cluster Forever, 558. TJPW, 681. DDT, 497. Joey Janela's Spring Break, 1,287. At that capture, tickets had sold over 100 since WrestleTix captured the last time. So maybe that'll end up doing over, maybe even 1,500. Heels Have Eyes. So this would, and which has moved a lot of tickets too. 873. This one will probably finish over 1,000 tickets. Defy, which has teamed up with Game Changer a few times at least, 363 tickets. So this isn't as far as them to travel, but they didn't do well with them in Brooklyn, as far as I could tell, in Chicago, and now in the Collective. High Spots Super Show, 655 tickets. Bloodsport, that's over 1,000 tickets. That one you would think would do well. Progress, 427 tickets. So really the standout, obviously, is Spring Break.
Joey
Janela. You have the Bloodsport, and Heels Have Eyes. The others, I would say, well, it depends. Like TJPW 681, is that disappointing and so on? I don't know. It's also like it's such a big difference in venues. Last time they were using like a catering hall, and here they're in like one of the biggest venues and classiest venues they've ever run. So it's like such a big difference. TNA show, this one hopefully will get some numbers, but they sold out their reserve tickets, and there's medium level availability for the GA, which are in the risers. John, what did you think about all these like WWE supplemental events this year?
I feel like some of them are been like Hall of Fame that's always goes on, NXT that always happens, but some of the other ones are just I don't know. The roast, I'm not really into that. I thought that was weird. Undertaker usually, I think, right for the last couple of years they've done the one dead man show, so that makes sense. But just I don't know some of the after party stuff and the roast. I'm just I don't know, not interested in those.
You know, to show you how out of touch I am, Tony, I'm gonna mess up the name, Hinchcliffe.
Yeah,
I thought they were doing like a spoof on what's his name from Man on the Moon.
Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, Andy Kaufman, and he had that like other personalities. I was like, are they like doing that? Like, why are they doing this? But this guy Tony, and I don't know, whatever, public figure. Apparently, he's like an asshole. Like he's gonna like rip these people apart, and like he was already like making fun of Big E's like neck injury on
Yeah,
the show.
yep.
So it's like I don't know, kind of like demoralizing. For them. Not this extreme, but I'm thinking back like on the guy, the first Monday Night Raw, where he was saying
Bartlett.
like, yeah, Yokozuna, is
Yeah.
he in a diaper or something like that? Actually, John, like that would be a great guest for you. You're so good at like finding some of these like interesting characters that we haven't heard from in forever.
It's so funny. I was just talking to my buddy about Rob Bartlett the other day, and he was saying that he wanted to see if he was available um, for like autograph signings and stuff. I was like, I know he still does um, comedian, like he's still a comedian. He still does shows. So yeah, I got to seek out Bartlett, see what he's up to. He didn't seem like the biggest wrestling fan in the world, though, to be honest.
No, but probably interesting stories. So
Yeah.
I couldn't get, maybe I was having trouble finding it. Like I couldn't get the stand and deliver numbers yet. So we'll catch up on that on the back end. But that's more of a higher profile show. But I'm more interested in like, the smaller shows. So the like post WrestleMania. So here it is. Everyone's like been there for so long and so on. So like, how much can you get out of this? So far, 1,229 tickets distributed with the current setup of 1946. It's Vegas, so you could always fill it up. So the roast, 2,293 tickets. The Deadman Show, almost 2,000, and the Hall of Fame, almost 3,000. John, like I remember going to see Donald Trump's induction into the Hall of Fame, and Madison Square Garden was sold out. Do you think like the Hall of Fame will become like an arena event again in the future, or do you think this is the best place for it?
I don't know. I would hope so. You would think with like Triple H and some of the guys that they have in, they would do a bigger house, but it's so late at night too. So it's weird. They need to figure out a better time and place for the Hall of Fame to make it more special. Because, like you said, when Trump went in, Bruno obviously was like the big draw, but that was loaded. You had Backlund, Foley was there, Trish, right? I mean, so that one was absolutely loaded and sold out MSG. So I figured that could be it should be an arena show. I mean, they got to do it upright, but the timing of it, you got to stop doing it so late at night.
I guess it's hard, like with WrestleMania week, to like shove everything in there, and like the way they were combining with SmackDown in the past. But obviously, you have Cena that could go in, but now they have like a loophole, which they sort of learned from the UFC. You induct matches, so there's really no end in sight. You can have
Yes,
like the biggest straws like
yes,
every year, but maybe that would like burn it out, where you don't feel like, oh, I need to go see my favorite wrestler.
right. But come on, you got Austin and Brett this year. I mean, you got some pretty big names. They got I don't know, maybe do it Thursday night because you have SmackDown now on Friday night. They got to figure something out because I think if you do it after SmackDown, it gets too late.
Maybe like maybe it's like something where you can add it to another premium event destination, but I guess that takes away because this is WrestleMania, like in the Hall of Fame. You want to like connect the two together.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be some way to do it earlier. Maybe do it
so
before SmackDown.
So, John, I hope it wasn't too painful for you or our listeners, but we did it. We gave a thorough analysis, and there's even more, right? There's so much more going on. WrestleMania week, but I think we covered, the shows that could be covered. Like, for example, Knox Pro, like you can't really tell from like the ticket sales page, like how many people the venue could seat and like how many tickets are available. So we only talked about those where there was some sense. Obviously, thank you to WrestleTix that actually has the map counting and so on. But from Eventbrite or similar application, you can at least get a sense of like how tickets are moving and get a sense of the momentum. And again, I think like to cap it off, there isn't a lot of momentum. There weren't a lot of surprises. It sort of was what you'd expect. And I think for some promoters, it's sort of a vanity or maybe a networking project now. It's good to meet other people, to get your name out there, to be attached to the biggest pro wrestling event on the planet. But also, John, what I think about is like maybe, if you're the type of geographic area that has pro wrestling all the time and everyone moved over there, maybe running a show, in New Jersey this weekend when WrestleMania isn't going on is a good idea, right? Because other promoters are put themselves out there and so on. So sometimes like you have to go left when everyone's going right, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and hey, AEW, right, staying far away from any of this stuff. So I don't know, maybe that could be a good idea. Let WWE have their a moment, and maybe not get outshined, if you will.
No, I think like for like a promotion that obviously they've gotten further and further away from it, but congrats on beating the Nitro record for whatever that is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, not taking too far away, and I know people have too much, but did you see Tony Khan yelling forever, forever?
Yes.
Like Terry Funk?
Yes.
That was great.
Yep.
I mean, he's living his best life, that. But it's like such a difference, right? Like for me, talking about alternative wrestling events, although the show ended up like being basically the death knell of Ring of Honor, like that New Japan Ring of Honor show in Madison Square Garden was historic. So, that's really what got me into this business. Really, the Ring of Honor, like WrestleMania week event, like counting those tickets, breaking records all the time. New Japan could draw, TNA could draw. But a smart idea from AEW, like not to run, because it does put you in the shadow. But the Ring of Honor thing, like, was good for a while, but it seemed like less and less return. It's probably a good idea to stay away from it. But when they do this Texas show, let's say the tickets, even increase where they're able to sell 18,000 tickets at the end of the day. It's the same audience. There, we know there's some people that are going to WrestleMania week that aren't going to WrestleMania, but there aren't a lot of people hanging around Arlington that are wrestling fans that aren't going to AEW unless there's some sort of WWE draw, right? But like they're having multiple events, but it's all speaking to the same audience, so that might be a challenge for them.
I do think that Nitro number that AEW with Dynamite, you got to take it with a grain of salt because you could probably add up 4 Dynamites and it might not equal 1 rating of Nitro. You know what I mean? Like, let's just take it with a grain of salt. Great accomplishment, but I think Nitro is a little bit more significant, a little bit more important.
Yeah, like today we're like, I mean, and this is like for the non Dynamite shows, but we're like, oh yeah, okay, they had a good week. They did 317,000 viewers, but I do want to give a shout out to our friend BJ Bethel, a journalist, first of all, firstly, and secondly, a writer for SE Scoops, who has gotten the numbers that the show is doing well on Max, maybe even 500,000, which I know a lot of us are like, how are they doing that? But I trust in BJ. I know he's getting a lot of crap on the internet. I don't think that's right. People may not want to receive information, but somebody that's really doing the work, treat them well. That's a basic thing, right? Did you go to kindergarten? Treat them well. But B, like, of all the people that are reporting on it, like, I know BJ knows his stuff. So you should definitely pay attention to that.
Yeah, I'm just curious though. I'd love to know how he's getting these numbers. That's what I want to know. Obviously, he can't reveal the sources, but I'm just curious because I would love to dig deep into these numbers. Because not only obviously AEW, but I was curious like how NBA is doing because I'm hearing not good. I want to know how NHL is doing. So he's got to find out all the pertinent info here because it just seems like NBA is way down this year, and I know AEW traditionally beats NHL, so I'm just kind of curious where everybody kind of is in the landscape of it. A lot of people are streaming though because I was just reading Paramount Plus, their numbers are like off the charts. So I know Max doesn't reveal it, and Paramount Plus is a different network, but it just I feel like so many more people are streaming now.
Yeah, I think, and working at college and so on, like people don't even think about like cable TV, and like if they go off in their own or with roommates or whatever, like they would never call to like set up like cable television. Every month I
Right,
look at them, it's like,
right.
what am I doing? Like, why? Like, but it's not just like stagnation and you just keep doing it, but like everyone streams. It's just like sort of like how open besides Netflix and YouTube, which for some people that will all be what they touch. That's why it's like so important to have a YouTube presence, but like if there's a way to make money from it, that would be even better. But there really has to be something that draws people to other services, and I think that they are older, like ourselves who are much older, who are going towards it. But I don't know if like a younger generation is willing to give these other services like a chance.
When you look at it too, just as far as streaming and people streaming, 1923, the show on Paramount, the finale did 14 million viewers. So I mean, a lot of people. I'm just saying, obviously, it's one of the most popular shows, but a lot of people are streaming. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're cutting the cord, if you will.
Yeah, the like in terms of like sports and viewership, to me, like the most interesting story like are networks that are sort of struggling and like they're widely distributed, but they had to sort of like play Moneyball and so on. So obviously CW first, with not only WWE but like NASCAR's like secondary type of programming and like college football. Thirdly, like for NASCAR, they did 1 million viewers on the weekend. I think it was a week or two ago. And then the other, and I think it's still called PAX. I hope I'm not messing that up. But like they were very smart about women's sports, like WNBA. They really lucked into it, right? It was like a superstar breaking
Yeah,
out.
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark. But like they really saw that trend and they were smart. I was listening to an interview where they like built out a studio. So it's not like people come and like maybe they pop in and they go, but like you sort of build it out like that consistency, like the way NBA and TNT was, or it will be till that's over.
All right, Lavie, let's wrap this bad boy up and get ready for some WrestleMania. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Two Man Power Trip. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, so my daughter isn't really like following the same social media as me, but if you want to spread some love and like tweet at me or get the message out there in the comments, depending on how you're viewing this, that you appreciate the shirt, just definitely get that out there. And it says "freak out" at the bottom, and that will mean a lot to her. But check me out on X, Lavie Marg, LAVIE MARG, and something that I didn't have a chance to talk about. I haven't seen yet a reservation for the public, but I know that it's out there. Brandon Thurston has shared it to his audience in terms of the University of Buffalo Student Association. We're going to talk about wrestling with education, understanding Linda McMahon in Buffalo. So I have my 8-hour Amtrak tickets booked. And not only Brandon Thurston, but Brian Solomon. I'll be on the panel. Another panelist who's an education expert, administrator, will be there in this moderated panel. So if it's open to the public, I believe it will be. Then I'll share some information next week and on social so that everyone can prepare and maybe attend.
Lavie, that's going to be a good one. You guys are making this a habit here. These shows, I love it.
Yeah, it's picked up. Oh, nice, son. You don't waste a second. I love it. And I love the style of it too. So, wrestling with education, understanding Linda McMahon, Waldman Theater, 190 Norton Hall. Be there, be there, be there. Especially if you're an alumni or a student. Publicly, I'm sure you can come also, but have to get that information first.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.